to school because I didn't like school. But I went to college with a national coal board, a nationalised industry, which had apprentices. Not the apprentices which we have in workplaces now, where you might get a 6-month placement, and you make the tea, and you put the papers out on and then after 6 months you're finished. These were proper apprenticeships, where you worked in the workplace, and then you went to college, and then the workplace went to college for 5 years, and where your qualifications meant you could transfer to different types of industry right across the globe. That's what we had in the nationalisation. So now we need to look to the future and understand exactly what's being said today, but never forget the past, because we have some fantastic, particularly educational institutions with regard to industry. We had some fantastic apprenticeships in the National Coal Board, for example. I just became an apprentice, and then the strike was called. I didn't have a clue what that really meant, despite the fact that my father and my four brothers, who lived in the same house, all worked at the pit. We didn't have a clue. I didn't have a clue. And I said to me, Dad, what happens here? I said, well, we're going to get on strike. I said, well, what's the issue? And the miners' strike wasn't about pay and conditions. It was about the future of mining communities and our children's children. There's not a lot more laudable cause than that. It wasn't about greed, it wasn't about pay, it wasn't about safety and health, it was about the future for the places in which we lived in the coal industries. Now, what then happened was there was a meeting with the unions, and they said that apprentices could go to work. And I said to my father, I said, well, look at the union said I should go to work, and there's me, my four brothers, my father, and my mum. And my father said, you just cannot even think of that, even though I'll always tell you to do exactly what the union says. So he says, I always did say that, and he did the same. He says, if you ever even think about that, not that you would, you'd be scared. And I was one of the only apprentices in the country that didn't go to work during the 1984-85 dispute. And it shaped my career, it shaped my way of thinking. And you know, the miners' strike, and people might think, oh, they're awakening, talking about something of a bygone era. But anybody who's learning about trade unionism, about socialism, about other people, what's right, what's wrong, should have a look at the true records of what actually happened during the miners' strike. The solidarity, comrades, was something that has very rarely been experienced. The solidarity among people who we work with underground, the friendship, the comradeship, the hardship that was encountered during the miners' strike. We're always there to support each other. That's trade unionism. The strong supporting the weak. That's trade unionism. And the way in which the strike took place, with the orators, with the rallies, was just something to behold. Tony Benn, Arthur Scargill, Dennis Skinner, minus his tennis racket. I mean, the rallies were absolutely enormous. The way in which a government was quite prepared to turn the forces of the state against the ordinary workers of the country. The brutality of the police. The way in which the judiciary supported the police. See, miners convicted of crimes. You might have seen it in video coverage. Where the miners themselves who, 50s, 60s, 70s now have actually been crying because they've still got a conviction on record for being whatever it may be. There's a couple of 2 or 3, maybe 2 or 3, no, maybe 40 or 50 miners jailed for absolutely nothing. There's hundreds of miners jailed during the dispute. These were hard-working, honest men. Who supported them? Trade unions. That's who supported them. Their comrades, their colleagues, their friends. We had the struggle. And let me tell you, comrades, lots of people will tell you that we lost the miners' strike. We might have, but the victory was in the struggle itself. And we should never, ever forget that. I'm listening to what's being said. And the reality is the trade union movement have never won anything without fighting for it. And that's the truth. We look at what the TUC have actually gained in the 150 years. Not a lot. I tell you what, the trade union movement, the individual unions, right from back then, right till now, have been absolutely amazing. The trade union movement and the trade unions aren't about getting free membership of some organisation which might get you free holders or cheaper holders. It's about winning disputes. It's about representing the workforce. It's about representing individuals. And Dave is a prime example. Dave said before, we've got some fantastic trade union leaders in this country. Of course we have. We've got some fantastic trade, and Dave is one of those fantastic trade union leaders. Because, as I've said already, you never gain anything without any pain. Never ever. The employer, whether it be the state or the private industry, never ever give you anything unless you're prepared to fight for it. And Mike Ashley, prime example. He's the chairman of my football club, for heaven's sake. It's a double whammy. I really dislike him, and I think this is being taped, so I cannot tell you exactly what I think of him. Look at the way he treats the people in Shirebrook. There's 1,000 workers here. The vast majority, 90% of people from Eastern Europe. All on different contracts, mainly 0-hour contracts. There's a lady had a child in the toilets 2 Christmases ago on Christmas Day because she was told she couldn't have the day off work without being penalised. There's ambulances at Shirebrook factory almost on a daily basis, if not more than that. And I'm going to get into the way in which these people are being treated, but I think I'll give that a miss. International solidarity is very important as well. During the strike it was very difficult. I was fine. I was 20. I could manage by hook or by crook. Lots of people had kids. Lots of people had mortgages. Christmas was coming. And you know what? The trade union movement gathered around the miners during that really difficult dispute. And at Christmas time, it was fantastic. The French CGT sent truckload of footballs in Barbie dolls for the miners' kids. They made a vow, in France. We'll make sure that there's not one miners' kid is without a present for Christmas. And they stuck to that. It was brilliant. I feel sorry for the little boys who got the Barbie dolls and the lasses who got the footballs. But that's the way things are. You know what else happened? We all got a chicken each for Christmas Day. And being in my family, there was 6 of us, all the same size as me, if not bigger, other than my mum. And we had this little chicken on the table at Christmas. You know, we couldn't obviously get a leg each, we couldn't get much of this little chicken. But you know what, it was a solidarity, seriously. The fact that somebody across the world had made sure that the miners in this country had something on their table at Christmas. That's trade unionism, you know? That's trade unionism. And it was amazing. We didn't want to touch it, we called it the red chicken. And we didn't want to eat any of it. So you know, it was difficult times, but being part of the trade union movement and getting stuck in is difficult. Being a trade unionist and being part of the movement should never be easy. Because if it's easy, you're doing something wrong. Once you solve one problem, there'll be 10 more the following day. And you've just got to dust yourself down and get back onto it and represent people who need representing. I've got to say, by the way, I mean, the way in which Thatcher turned the police onto and into the minor communities, people remember quite clearly, was one of the worst things I've ever experienced. And I did experience quite a lot of police intimidation, which again, because of videos there, I'll not get into too much detail. But it was, as I say, the proudest moment in my life when I decided, well, not when I decided, but I became president of the National Union of Miners. And we've got a challenge. You're absolutely right. We've got a huge challenge about how we take the movement forward. Immense challenges. And I used to be the future many years ago. These are the future now. But we've got to build on what we did have. All the good things we had is because we had a fantastic movement. Dave mentioned in the 70s, were 30 million people with a density of 56% in the workplace. And we've got to look to try and regain that. Young people are the key. Now, Charlotte said we've got to, we don't represent the people, sorry, we don't look like the people that we represent. Did he actually? I felt a bit guilty when Charlotte said that. I've got a tie on, I've got a suit on, I've got grey hair, I'm white, I'm portly. And I was thinking, shouldn't you be there? And being a man, I was going to say, hey, whoa, yeah, anyway. I think you're right. But they reflect the people in the Commons. I'm a young'un in the Commons. And we have, seriously, we've got to get, not just in Parliament, but right across the board, we've got to be representing the communities, and you've got to have people who reflect the communities in which we live. I wouldn't discard anybody above 48, because in the trade union movement, in politics, as a wealth of knowledge, I'll use Dennis Skinner as in terms of a politician, and I can use other trade union general secretaries. We've got to make sure that the young people, first of all, a lot of young people haven't got a clue what a trade union is. I was at the conference speaking to some kids, said, well, you know, what is a trade union? And I'm thinking, this lad is like, he's joking. He's provoking me. But you know what? He wasn't. And a lot of, we assume that people, young people leaving school, who are getting abused and exploited, we assume that it's their choice not being a trade union because they don't want to be in a trade union. The reality is they're very much unaware of what a trade union actually is. So we've got to look together as a labour and trade union movement. And Dave mentioned the changes with New Labour, the current trade union and labour relationship. Couldn't be any better, Dave. And I cannot foresee in my lifetime, and I've campaigned and fought for this all my life, I cannot see it getting any better. But we are, at this point in time, in a mass struggle within our own party to ensure that we get it right. There's resistance to the path and direction in politics which Corbyn has brought to the table. Again, some of it within our own party. We've got to get grips with that. But I'll tell you what, when the snap election was called, and Jeremy had already asked me to be the national campaign coordinator, and when it was called, I nearly had a fit. I was like everybody else, we're 24 points behind in the polls, and that everybody was saying what to be annihilated. So we had to think pretty rapidly. We only had 5 weeks for the election, and we had to come up with a manifesto within that time and get it published, and then we had to make sure that everything was on the table so we could get out there and say this. And we had a couple of really stark decisions to make. What should we put in the manifesto? And the second thing is, we need to speak ordinary people's language. Too many politicians for generations, you hear them speak on the television, you hear them on Radio 4, and after 10 minutes you haven't got a clue what they're being said. And we say that, it wasn't rocket science, speak people's language. And give them some hope, give them some optimism. Instead of the despair and the austerity which has been hammered, and the vulnerable people, the disabled people, the people on benefits have been absolutely destroyed by this callous Tory government. So we had to just concentrate on that. And again, Dave mentioned this. That manifesto is, in my view, the best Labour Party stroke trade union document the Labour Party have ever produced. In it had a 20-point plan for people in the workplace. And the things range from the rights from day one, banishing zero-hour contracts, get rid of tribunal fees, get rid of the public sector pay cap. That means paying people in the NHS properly, council workers properly, people who work mainly on low wages, paying them properly so they haven't got to go to food banks on their way back from work to feed their kids. And it means that they haven't got to, or they cannot collect benefits at the same time as working 48 hours a week. I mean, what sort of country are we living in? And we see that within the manifesto. We're talking about access to the workplace for trade unions. We're talking about the full repeal within 100 days of the Trade Union Act. And we're talking about a whole range of other issues. Pay ratios, 20-1. What we're saying, and these are simple calls. It's not even left wing. This is about it's about fairness to people in the communities. It isn't left wing. What's left wing, by the way, in the manifesto? About saying we'll have decent housing for people. What's left wing with saying we'll support the NHS? What's left wing with about saying we'll have a fair education system from the cradle to the grave with equal opportunities for everybody? What's left wing about saying we'll pay you right, we'll pay you the right rate for the job and real living wage? You know, the reality is, and I'm not joking, the reality is people were saying this document is too left wing. But I think when it's sunk in with people, they realise that what the Labour Party come up with in a very short space of time, with immense help from the trade unions, and I mean immense help from the trade unions, we come up with a manifesto which people were delighted with. You know, we were in a private meeting the 2 days before the manifesto was due to be officially launched, and I was a food car, it was a Sunday night, and we're discussing the publication of the manifesto. And there was a phone call and he says, "You're not going to believe this. The manifesto's been leaked." And we were distraught. And when I say we were distraught, I was myself, Jeremy, John, a few others, not many, absolutely distraught. And then the next morning in the Daily Mail, it said, "Decent housing for everybody, Corbyn reveals." And people were saying, "I will have some of that." And then the next day, "Corbyn wants fair pay for people." And I will have some of that as well. And for the whole of the week, the newspapers picked up on this leaked manifesto. And we couldn't have bought it if we tried. And as people say to me, "Ian, was it you that leaked it?" And I'm saying the same to everyone. It wasn't me this time, but perhaps the next time. Because it was absolutely brilliant. So we've got the labour and trade union movement for the first time working very closely together. And I want to tell you something else from the trade union movement. When the snap election was called, and David knows this, we didn't have the money as a Labour Party to fight a campaign, or we didn't have enough to fight an effective campaign. And we had to speak within hours to the general secretaries of the unions, you know, as ever, to step up to the plate immediately. There wasn't any problems. Although there's been difficulties and unions are suffering, as Dave explained, there's lots of problems with different unions. The general secretaries were absolutely fantastic. And within a day, we had a huge pledge of finance, a huge pledge of support from the membership, a huge pledge of whatever the unions had available to campaign so we could put up at the fight at the general election. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it at all. Because I've been one of those that's been sick and tired, by the way, of the Labour Party treating the trade union movement as the drunken uncle at the party. If there's ever a problem, I'll ring Dave Ward up, or ring Lane up, or ring Tim up, or it doesn't work that way. We've got to make sure, and we will, and we are ensuring that the relationship between the trade union movement and the Labour Party is flourishing for the right reasons. So as a Labour Party, as a political party, together with 6 million people in this country, we're working together to make sure we represent and we try and take forward and transform the lives of millions of people, their communities, their workplaces, and their families. It's going to be very difficult, but we will overcome. Comrades, the Durham Miners' Gala is on in about 4 or 5 weeks' time. I would imagine a whole number of you have already been, but that in itself is something which every trade unionist should try to get to. And it epitomises what the labour and trade union movement stands for. The banners, like this fantastic banner there, and that banner there, the brass bands, the communities, people coming together for a common purpose, is absolutely unbelievable. I always remember what some of these fantastic banners say, and remember ourselves at times when we often feel low. Triumphant, we bravely defend. United, we stand. Divided, we fall. The strong support the weak. Comrades, it's an absolute pleasure to be here and working together. There isn't anything we cannot achieve. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Ian. I mean, we've been here today celebrating the past 150 years of the TUC. But I also look to the future, Ian, and I think Jeremy Corbyn inspired young people like never before to get involved in politics. When you looked at the rallies that Jeremy was having, there was loads of young people there. We've got Charlotte and Bonnie here today. So I think the Labour and Trade Union movement is very much there for the future. It's in good hands. We've got to build on that and keep them interested, get them active, and I'm sure that in times to come, people will be celebrating 200 years of the trade union movement. I think what we'll do now is have a short question and answer session. Paul, you're going to present the speakers with
Yeah.
the history of Ruskin as well, aren't you?
Yeah, for what, 5 minutes?
Yeah. So,
Do you want to do that first?
yeah.
Yeah, we've got our, following on what I said at the start, where we did like a review of the history of Ruskin, and so we have in our archives a very rare collection of this history by Harold Collins, who's one of our luminaries of Ruskin. And it's a narrative of Ruskin College, but it's entertaining. It gives you all the kind of little stories and all the little detail of life here at Ruskin. And also on the front, you'll see that we have that's a picture of Walton Street. And today, the facade of Walton Street is still there, but behind it is Exeter College, University of Oxford. So it's now a bastion of privilege, but not quite, because we still have the Ruskin Room, which is here. I'm pointing at it there. There's a plaque in there commemorating the fact that it was the first working people's college, and it's Labour and Trade Union roots. So it's with pleasure that we'll give each of you a copy of this. And in no particular order, Ian, there's your own. And Bonnie, there you go. Charlotte, there you are. And of course Dave, there you go. Cheers, thanks a lot.
Ian's got to go back to the House of Celebrities because the voting needs to be there. Obviously the Tories haven't got a majority government, so any vote could go against them. So once again, Ian, I'd like to thank you for coming here today, being part of this celebration, and I'm quite sure we'll see you again in the future. Thanks very much. Has anybody got a question for anybody in the panel? It's the first time I've been on the run for the trade union.
Liam from, I work at Ruskin, I'm a tutor and a member of the UCU, the Lecturers Union. Thanks so much for that introduction, really fantastically interesting and fantastically relevant to the situation today. Just a quick question, and just building on some of the stuff that you've said right at the beginning, a number of people alluded to the trends in terms of trade union membership and collective agreements coverage that is going down. I think there's at least two shining examples of the trend being booked over the recent past. Being a UCU member, one of those comes with my own union. Over the last few months, people might be aware that over the last few months the UCU has been on strike over pensions. We didn't get a complete victory, but we got a massive step forward in terms of our organisation. Now, in terms of trade union membership, what has occurred as a result of that strike over the last 3 months is that the UCU membership has gone up by 16,000 members in 3 months. Down the road at Oxford University, the membership down there in 3 months went up by 500 members in one workplace alone. So in terms of union membership, that period of activity and going on strike has come up in spades, really. And so it's improved the union in terms of numbers, but it's also, periods of activity like that improves unions in terms of qualitatively, if you like, in terms of people's attitudes and the membership, the new membership that comes with it. I've just come from UCU Congress last week, and there's a kind of a tradition at Congress that when it's your first speech, you say, "This is my first conference," and everybody gets a round of applause. And something like 1 in 4 people getting up were new members. And that brought a completely new mood, loads of ideas, loads of ways of pushing things forward, loads of challenging the status quo. So I think that's one shining example of how activism has booked the trend. The other shining example, and I think Ian kind of undersold himself a bit, really, is obviously the membership of the Labour Party, which is, I think the Labour Party now is the biggest social democratic party in the world in terms of its membership. And that's got to be down to the fact that Corbyn's there representing an idea for change, and people like Ian have taken that on board and tried to organise it. So, he talked about the manifesto and how successful that was in getting the Labour Party's result during the election. It wasn't just the manifesto. Every time Corbyn spoke outside in anywhere around the country, at mass rallies, there was a mass turnout. What Corbyn does, and his idea that things can change, is get people moving. It activates people. So my question to the panel is, how important? Because just before that, in the past, what's been said is, there might be a Labour Party coming into government, we need to damp down activism. That's going to threaten a Labour Party victory. How important do the panel think things like activism around strikes, around protests, how important do you think that is in terms of building support for the Labour Party and getting the Labour Party elected eventually?
I'll start off if you want me.
I know what you say, Dave.
I think that activism in whatever shape or form it takes has an effect on membership. That people join trade unions when they seem to be doing something. Because I think Dave would agree, and people have alluded to it. We went through a period in the 90s on what I call credit card trade unionism. Join the union because you get 10% off this, that and the other. And I just started teaching trade union courses then. And I felt like jumping out the window when I went round the room and said to the reps, "Why did you join the trade union?" And one said, "I got 10% off it next." And I just thought, what have we become? When you join in the union because you got the 10% off it next. But I think we have seen the shift now. And people are joining unions for the right reasons, not what I class as the wrong reasons. And I think any activity, it's a bit like no publicity is bad publicity. I think we have got people, not only are they prepared to take action, but we've now got leaders in the trade union and labour movement that are prepared to lead by example and take that argument forward. So that's my view on that matter, Lee.
My view is that, much like Dave, nobody joins a union that does nothing. We can see from countless examples from countless unions, the UCU one being, one of the most recent and most fantastic examples of that, is that people join unions when they're doing something, or when they've got a credible plan to win. You don't attract people to our movement by just sort of sitting about and not really doing anything. You have to demonstrate to people that you're worth not only their financial investment, but their emotional investment and the perception of risk. When people join a union, they do, like, in your head, you do this kind of mental cost benefit analysis, don't you? And if all you can see is being a tenner down a month or whatever subs are, and with no plan to win and no plan to do anything, you're not going to do it. But I also think that, you asked about the link between getting people into the Labour Party. I mean, certainly when I first got involved in the union movement, people banged on and on and on at me about how I had to join the Labour Party because it was my party and it was set up by and for me and da-da-da-da-da. And then you see Tony Blair invading Iraq and starting the road for PFI. I was like, what? What are you people on? This is crazy. And for a very, very long time, I flat out refused to join the Labour Party because I did not see myself and my aspirations for my class represented in that party. I saw the likes of Tony Blair and all the rest of them cozying up to big business. I saw my unions lining up to give them money time and time and time again, and then getting absolutely nothing back for it. So I didn't join the Labour Party for a very long time, and I think, the presence of Corbyn in the Labour Party now, that the fact that Corbyn's the leader, the fact that he has a team of people like Ian and John McDonnell and all the rest of them around him, where the interests and the values of our side are at the forefront of the Labour Party once again, I think that makes it easier because people can now see a clear break between the new Labour of the past and the Labour Party as it is right now, and it's a more credible thing. But I also think that one of the things that a lot of trade unions have done is taken the fact that trade unionists will vote Labour for granted. And not all of them do, and not all of them are going to. But they might if we get better at convincing them why they should and not just taking it for granted that they will. And I think that's one of the things that, I know a lot of the affiliates do a lot of good work on articulating the value of voting Labour to members. But I think, we have to get better at it. Don't just assume that because you're in a union you'll vote Labour, because we know by how grossly, our membership figures massively outnumber the number of people who are members of the Labour Party. It isn't always going to be the case. Unite is a union of 1.4 whatever million members. There are going to be a lot of people in that 1.4 million who don't vote Labour. We have to work harder at convincing them that they've got to.
Just to add on to what Charlotte said in terms of you won't join a union if you don't think that they're going to do something, the way that when we decided that we were going to fight against what Fridays was doing, the way the union was presented to us wasn't you're going to get 10% off in there. It wasn't you're going to get free this or free that. It's because we wanted to make a change and we actively wanted to do something and we needed protection, so we went straight to the union because that's where we could get that protection. And then from then on, you have to be somewhat politically aware because it links directly to the fact that businesses are allowed to get away with this. So I think that there is a link in making people aware, and I think that's the most important thing, that at least people are aware. I don't think it necessarily translates directly into voting for the Labour Party like Charlotte said, but at least people are aware and we're not just joining unions because we get free this or free that. I got a letter the other day for 5,000 accidental death coverage, very exciting, but that's not the reason why I joined the unions. I did it because I wanted to fight and I needed protection, so I went and I did it.
I think activism is fundamental to the future of the movement. It's always been there, but I think it's coming round again. And I think you can see that in some of the examples that are taking place in the world of work today. And I think a lot about giving people the confidence to act. So yes, unions will have their hierarchy and will have all of the votes and everything, conferences and that. But for me, I'm very interested in ensuring that people who are coming through in the movement gain the confidence through education and through the way that we support people in workplaces to be part of it themselves. I was always a believer, as I went through the union movement, to not necessarily phone somebody up and say, like your headquarters and say, excuse me, we've got a row going on, can you come down and help us? I was a believer in getting the people in and around me to start that row. And I think we've got to encourage people who are taking that fight on at the moment. What Corbyn has done, I think, is he's created the link again between your industrial and your political agendas. In CWU, colleagues that are here from our union will know that we're working hard to build that link. They often hear me talking about the link between your industrial work and your political work. But I think it has to be rooted in work. If you want to make people more politically aware within the trade union movement, you have to earn the right to talk about politics. It's clearly there is a link. Everything that happens in the world of work is at some level influenced by what happens in the world of politics. But I think unions have to work, particularly because of the recent past, where there has been criticism. I mean, you know, there's a lot of people. I stood on a ticket that said, in the future, this was before Corbyn had come in to be in the sense of leadership. I stood on a ticket that said, in the future, Labour are not going to get something for nothing from us, because I thought they had something for nothing in those years leading up, and you know, I took a very strong position on that, and we've worked hard to ensure that in that manifesto, there's things about work are in there, and you know, I think this is crucial that we do that. What I think is really interesting about, you know, the young people today, and right across the piece, is that when you do something, when you communicate effectively, people want to do things. See, you know, whilst it's right to point out the history of the movement, whilst it's right to point out it peaked there and we're here, we are in a good moment. We're in a good place at the moment if we believe in activism. You know that. So let me give you the example of the CWU. UCU was a good example. What Corbyn has done in building a social movement was a good example. But you know, it was great within the CWU the other year when we said, in the middle of a dispute with the new anti-trade union laws there and everything, I think we were the first of the big unions to ballot under that, and we smashed all of them laws. Why? Because we went out and we engaged differently. So what did we do? We said to people, if you want to talk to us on a Wednesday at 6 o'clock, come online. You can talk to your leaders of the union. And public, you know, we're about to enter into a dispute. If you want to know what it's about, come online. You can talk to us. We're here. We ain't running away. And what we said was, we had a thing, National Gate Meeting Day, which was about activism. And that created such a momentum where we brought together old and new ways of communicating. And what I felt, you know, the happiest of all during that period was that day. You know, in the end, you get a settlement, you get negotiations, your members get you that settlement through their strength, and we got a good settlement. But that day was massive in our trade union, because what it did, and I found it really interesting to learn from that day, was that I remember it was at a TUC Congress actually, and we called National Gate Meeting Day, and we got thousands of postal workers coming out of their offices. And how we did that was we publicised it. We said we're going to have a gate meeting. I remember going to Brighton delivery office as the TUC Congress was on, and what our communications team said was, well, a few of you will go to surrounding offices. One of our reps there from Worthing, and one of our other leaders, Terry Pullinger, went to Worthing, and we started that day rolling. So I did a meeting. The management actually says one of the first times when they said, like, do you want to come in to the workplace? And we said, no, it's all right, the members are coming out to speak to us. And we put it on social media. And within the next couple of hours, it was full of people wanting to be part of that process. And they had their gate meetings, and they put their photos on social media. And what we got there was activism. And that made me personally feel really good about our trade union, that people did something. So activism is fundamental. You don't wait for your leaders to do it, you do it with the people around you. And that's the examples that are being given today, I think, is that that's happening. That's why I think we're in a good place.
Andy?
I'm very fortunate to be a member of the CWU, a member of the UCU, and a visiting tutor at Ruskin in Trade Union Studies. I'd like to ask Dave a question, and I might have asked him it before. People like Ken Gill, Rodney Bickerstaff, Keith Ewing, and John Hendy have been involved in the Institute for Employment Rights, and they've come up with a manifesto for employment rights. And I think it makes supreme sense to kind of align all of that thinking and all of those resources from the Labour Party through the trade union movement, the TUC, into the Institute for Employment Rights. Because when Dave talks about a manifesto for workers, I think that that manifesto for employment rights has to be an essential component in that manifesto for workers, because New Labour, I think, stand condemned absolutely for not repealing any of that anti-trade union legislation, and it has to go. And we heard from Ian today that it will go within 100 days, but the expertise that can be tied down to in that institute, I think is invaluable. So do you think it makes an important component, Dave, is the question?
Yeah, I think it's a very important component, and John and Keith Ewing in particular have been working with the trade unions and with Labour to ensure that that is one part of Labour's manifesto, and they've got open access to Labour to shape that positive employment rights agenda, but also that it can link up with the work that we're doing, and we're in dialogue with them about how you pull all of that together. So yeah, I do agree with that.
Any more questions?
Not a question, more a comment if you like. My name's Kieran, I'm a local government officer, I work in housing, I'm passionate about affordable housing. I'm on the Part 1 courses, so thanks to Ian over here. James, people know Ian, I can't get him out of my head. He was like a comedy turn, he was brilliant. Sorry James, James. And some of the other members of the course are here. And I've got to say, I've really had my eyes open wide. I've been in this work with the council for 11 years. I'm actually a retired police officer, so I was in the Met. So I've been affected by what's been said on many levels. We can remain friends, can't we? But it's a comment on what's been said up here, what Dave has said, and Charlotte, and all of you really, about what needs to be done. I'm passionate about housing, that our service is being eroded. The tenants that I serve, and I have served for 11 years, I'm from a council house myself in London, near Wembley, 7 kids, Irish mum, no dad, we had it rough. We used to get means tests. She used to tell them to off, spelled F-E-C-K. So it was rough times when I was a kid. But the people that carry out, and James that was just here is one of our electricians, they've now gone private, they're doing private work. We've got a new chief exec. I was asked to become a steward because I'm quite vocal, quite bobby, and we've got situations where I've gone into work recently, a chap in his 40s is crying at his desk because he's being bullied, roused through the floor, people are going off sick with work-related stress. It's ridiculous. I went to my first branch meeting and I heard that it's endemic. It's right across the council. I've got colleagues from the contact centre here. It's just unbelievable what we're hearing. So I went to see the new chief exec. Guess what? Couldn't give a toss. This is my opinion, it's an honest opinion, I'm trying to be very objective. So I guess the comment I'm making is I've heard what you've had to say. Now is the time. I mean, from what we heard today, we've got a friend here from Oxford University, Buckinghamshire County Council, we've got care workers, my colleague friend here is getting battered on a daily basis looking after young, difficult children. The police don't want to really get involved. It's right across the board. So we need this unity. But I'm saying in response to what Charlotte said, if we're going to represent the people, what I'd like to see happen to start with is more publicity, more good news stories, more people like Ian, James. I haven't had a drink, I've had a drink for 6 months. More people like James with great stories to tell, and some of you guys coming and visit us in their workplace and telling us how it is. I've been on the fence all my life. My mum was a labourer. I'm a nominal socialist, I guess. Not anymore. So,
Well, good.
come and tell us